To get started, give you a little bit of my background. My name is Mark Rosser. I'm a captain with your Fairfield Glade Police Department. I've been here 8 years. I spent nearly 30 years with the city before that. So I've got right at 37 years in law enforcement. I'm a former United States Marine, and I spent a couple years with the 278th when I got out of the Marine Corps. So I've been in uniform a little over 40 years. I've been a firearms instructor probably about 30 years for law enforcement, and I was also a firearms instructor in the Marine Corps. So that's a little bit of my background. So I've had quite a bit of experience with firearms and quite a bit of experience with people who break firearm laws. Most of what I'm going to tell you today, you could probably look up online or look on the state's websites and find most of the same information. Sometimes I'll just have it all here ready for you. There's a lot of handouts there as you came in that has a lot of law on it. I'm going to try to give you the Reader's Digest version of some of it. Some of it you might want to sit down and read more into it. It's just like I can tell you in like 2 minutes time what it takes to get your concealed carry permit, but when you sit down there and read that, that gives you the nuts and bolts of everything on it and everything that the state has on it. But I want to really thank you all for coming out, and if you all haven't had a chance, then you're welcome to get up and look too. I always put out a static display of different types of weapons for you all to look at, and I'll be picking up some of those and giving you some demonstrations on some of those. All the weapons I'm going to bring up and show you today have been cleared twice and zip tied and checked again before we got here, and there's no ammunition anywhere around that table. Those are all dry weapons, and I'll have those officers check those weapons again before I bring them up here and show them to you. I have with us today our good friends from the Fairfield Glade Sportsman's Club. If y'all are not familiar with the Fairfield Glade Sportsman's Club, it's a really great organization, and they have a really good range, and they teach a lot of classes, and that's a real good place. If you have questions about your concealed carry permit or your enhanced carry permit, or just want a good place to go out and shoot and make some good friends, these gentlemen over here can tell you all about it. And I'll have one of them just stand up here for a minute and just tell you a little bit about the Sportsman's Club. Like I said, they are really good partners with the police department. They let us go over there, and that's where we do our firearms training.
Thank you, Captain Rosser. I'm Perry Tillman. I'm the president of the Fairfield Glade Sportsman's Club. I've got two of our wonderful instructors with me, Mr. Jim Cribbs and Doug Stedelberg. Our club was formed in 1987, so we've been around a while. We are a nonprofit entity. We're all volunteer, and we're dedicated to all the shooting sports. Pistol, rifle, shotgun of multiple kinds, and archery too. So we have ranges for every taste. One of our prime reasons for being is our education department. We are a certified NRA school. We teach basics, pistol, rifle, shotgun. We have range safety officer classes. We have multiple NRA style classes. But we're also certified by the state of Tennessee to teach the enhanced carry class. So if you have any questions or are looking to get more training, a little bit more hands-on experience, stop by. We'd be more than happy to talk to you, answer any questions that you have. And I want to thank Captain Rosser again for inviting us out. We're here on the side. Come see us.
And also, folks, after the presentation, myself and my officers over here will be around for a while, and these gentlemen will be around for a while too, so you can go talk to them after the presentation. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about. Now, we've probably got some people in this room that have a lot of experience with firearms, and we probably have some people that don't have a lot of experience. So you'll have to forgive me if some of it goes a little slow for you, because I'm going to talk about some different types of firearms and what the differences are in them. If you'll just give me a little time to show that to some of these people. Okay, first firearm we want to talk about is a revolver. One of my all-time favorite handguns is a revolver. I owned several of them when I first went to firearms instructor school. Tell you how long ago I went to firearms instructor school. I went with a .357 revolver. You probably won't see that much anymore. Okay. This is what they call the wheel gun. Why they call it a wheel gun is because a revolver spins like a wheel. Okay, this is a .38. This one was actually my father's. He spent 30 years as a police officer too. Now he's walking the golden streets. And he left me this gun, so it's pretty special to me. That is a .38 revolver. Now this is actually what they call a double action. There are double action and single action revolvers. And a lot of people get confused about exactly what you mean when you talk about a single action and a double action. It is actually referring to what the trigger does when you pull it. Single action means what? It does one thing. Double action means it does two things. Okay? Double action means it cocks the weapon and it fires the weapon. Single action means it just fires the weapon. That means you're going to have to, you'll manually cock, like you see the old West movies where they're drawing the gun and they're fanning the hammer. That's because those are single action revolvers, meaning they still make them today. Ruger Vaquero was probably one of my favorite ones that they make. And they still make them today, and they have a lot of shooting sports and clubs for them that shoot simply single action. But single action means that you have to cock it manually before the trigger will work. So if you have a single action revolver and you load it up and you close the cylinder, and if you haven't cocked it and you pull the trigger, you're going to have a dead trigger and it's not going to do anything. Where this is a double action revolver, which means if I close this, it won't close because I've got a tie on it. Close this and you pull the hammer back, you don't have to pull the hammer back. You can pull the hammer back and make this a single action. But you close this and you pull the trigger, it's going to turn the cylinder and line it up with the barrel, and it's also going to pull the hammer back and release the hammer. That's talking about what it does. It's going to cock the weapon and it's going to fire the weapon. That's what a double action does, and the single action will only do one. Now some people talk about, they'll call this a pistol. A pistol is actually a semi-automatic handgun. Okay. What we have here is a pistol. This is a .45 pistol made like a 1911, which are the old Colts, and I've got one there I'll show you. Now, these will come in single action and double action also. This one is a single action, which means I've got to pull the slide back and let it go forward to feed it and cock the weapon. Now, if you come over here to something like this Beretta is what they call a double single, What that means, the first pull of the trigger of this weapon, it's going to act like a double action. It's going to cock the weapon and it's going to fire the weapon. But after it fires that first time, you don't have to cock it again because it's already cycled itself. It turns into a single action. So they call this a double single. And then sometimes when people talk about weapons, they can get very confusing. I have two that I'm going to show you here that sound a lot like, when you talk about them, sound a lot like the same weapon, but they are very different. One is a semi-automatic pistol, and one is a Colt. See, but this is a .45 long Colt revolver. This is a Colt .45. Now, people get confused on what that means. Colt .45 means this is a semi-automatic .45 caliber manufactured by Colt. This is a Smith & Wesson that takes a .45 long Colt round. It's a .45 caliber. It's longer than most other rounds. So this is a 45 long Colt. This is a Colt 45. This is a pistol, and this is a revolver. Anytime during any of this, if anybody has any questions, you don't have to wait till the end, just raise your hand. Okay, we already talked a little bit about the pistols. We went over them. Now also there is another type of little automatic pistol that you don't see a whole lot. This is the little pocket pistol revolver that you can stick in your pocket. Now this is also a single double, but this one has a little extra trick. You can pop the barrel up on this one and load around straight in here and pop it back down and cock it, and it's going to act, it's already chambered and hot and ready to go. You don't have to rack the slide, just pull the hammer back to the first one and you're rolling in single action. Those were real popular about 10 or 15 years ago. I've not seen them so much anymore, but that's still one of my favorite little pocket guns. It's good sometimes for people that don't have the strength to pull the slide. There's a little level here, you can pop up the barrel, put a round in there, put it back down and pull the hammer back, and you don't have to pull the slide back. Yes, sir? Is that just a single shot? No, it takes a magazine. Those guys give me a hard time because when I was in the Marine Corps, a lot of times they called magazines clips. And they like to refer to them as magazines, which is their proper name. But this will hold, I think this thing holds about 6 or 7 rounds. But like I said, after you put that first round in there, it'll have a magazine in here, and then it'll continue to feed off of the magazine. Okay, shotguns. Probably the most versatile weapon out there. And a lot of people think it's one of the best home defense weapons out there. This is actually the first gun I ever bought. Got me a job bagging groceries at the IGA, bought this. Me and my dad went to the pawn shop, bought this when I was 15 years old. This is a Remington 870. Okay. One of the most popular pump shotguns there is in the world. This is a Remington 870. You could use this to squirrel hunt, to bird hunt, to deer hunt. And the difference in what you're hunting with this weapon is so versatile is what type of load that you put in it. Like I said, in this presentation, I'm not going to mix firearms and ammunition, so I'll talk about ammunition, but I'm just going to show you, I'm going to show you the weapons, just talk about the ammunition. It's just the safety thing. I said this is a pump shotgun. One reason I like these so much, it's on a shotgun. If you listen to people talk about what type of shot they're using, like if you're going out to the Sportsman's Club and you want to shoot some of these clays, these orange things that are flying around there, you might want to shoot what they call bird shot, like what, 9s or 8s, something like that. And what that refers to, the higher the number is, the smaller the pellets are that are inside the hull. And also, the more of them there are. The lower the number is, the fewer there are. Like police shotguns, we usually use what would be called double buckshot, which is about equivalent to a .32 caliber round, and there's usually 8 or 9 in those, usually 9 on what we use of those, where you're doing some of these bird rounds, you could have, what, 100 of them in there or more? And it scatters more as it goes out, where that'll control it. And shotguns also dependent on how short or how long the barrel is, how tight your pattern will be. And there's also screw-in chokes that can go on the end of the barrels that can change what kind of pattern you're going to be shooting depending on what you're trying to do with your shot. Now that's just like, you can have a number 9 shot all the way down to a double buck, or they can also have what we use as police officers sometimes, or if you were going to do some serious hunting with that thing is what they call slugs. It is one round, and it's usually 1 ounce of lead, and that's a big round that goes in that 12 gauge shotgun, and that can do a whole lot of damage. But the one thing about that shotgun has kind of a downfall over, say, a high-powered rifle is the distance. Now, even with a slug in it, probably I'm not going to want to shoot that thing much farther from what, here to the road. Yeah. But they're extremely accurate when you get in closer to that. You know, that from here to the wall, you can shoot that thing with a slug in as accurate as you can with a rifle. And we'll talk about a little bit about different types of shotguns. This is one of my favorites, kind of a bird gun. This is when you get into that pump shotgun, you rack that thing each time you fire it. Now this is a semi-automatic shotgun. You load this thing, and it's going to keep firing until you load what they call this is the well or the magazine. Well, or the magazine. You load it up with rounds, and you can drop one in here in the top of it and load it, and you keep firing this. It'll keep going as long as you've got rounds in it. You don't have to rack it. It's like that semi-automatic pistol. Once you fire it that first time, it's going to keep on rolling. Then we get into like single shot shotguns. So this one, like the old double barrel stagecoach gun. Okay. Now this one here, it doesn't have a well or a magazine to put rounds in. So this one, you're going to be putting them in the barrel. Or they also make shotguns what they call over and unders, what they use a lot at the Sportsman's Club. What the barrel be turned the other way, and you'll have a barrel on top of a barrel. This is a double barrel. Like I said, this is a old stagecoach gun. It's a replica, but it still fires like any of them did when they were brand new. That is a double barrel shotgun. You don't put rounds anywhere but right here in those two chambers. And it's got 2 triggers on it. So the old saying is you could give them both barrels or you could give them one at a time. But a lot of police departments are starting to go away from their shotguns and going into more into high-powered rifles just because of what we're coming up against. Now what we're talking about here is a rifle, rifles or carbines. Talk about a rifle or a carbine. Most of the time when somebody talks about a carbine, it's just a more compact, shorter barrel rifle. Because when I think about like a carbine, this is an M1 World War II carbine. That's World War II vintage carbine, 30 caliber, semi-automatic. It's magazine fed. That means that, you know, they load that first round, and it's going to keep rolling until they run out of ammunition in their magazine. Or you have what most people think about their basic high-powered rifle or deer rifle. This is a 270. This takes a high-powered 270 round, okay? And this thing will have no problem shooting from here to Cumberland County Bank. But like I said, now this has a little well in it in the bottom, so you don't have to you can load one round at a time, which this has a bolt action on it, but there's a well here in the bottom. I think you can put like 3 or 4 rounds down in the bottom of it, and it'll fire those 3 or 4 rounds. But each time you fire a round, you have to bring the bolt back and recharge it again each time. It's not semi-automatic like that other one where you can keep pulling that trigger. You pull that trigger once, you got to pull that bolt back, and eject that round and feed another round into the chamber. That's the difference in those. But you see how this rifle here is a lot longer than that other one? So this is a full-size rifle where the other one's a carbine. Okay, now we're going to talk about guns that get a lot of press. Not a lot of good press, but they get a lot of press, mostly bad press, as assault weapons. Basically, military-style weapons. The only difference in that weapon there and what I've got over there on the table, one like it, and what I carried when I was in the Marine Corps, is these weapons here are semi-automatic. That means one pull of the trigger gets you one round. Where if this was a military-grade weapon, or if you had special permits and stamps for it, or the police departments can get different types of weapons, they have what is called a burst fire or a fully automatic. Most of your, even before I got out of the Marine Corps in the early 80s, for the ground level troops, they were moving to a 3-round burst gun. As they didn't, like they learned in Vietnam, they were burning way too much ammunition. You know, they were just, like they said, praying and spraying. And they were changing them over to the 3-round burst, so I thought they would help them conserve their ammunition a little bit. But it's got a selector switch on the side. This one only has a fire and save. This one fires semi-automatic, which means one pull of the trigger gets you one round. Now, if this was built for burst, that means one pull of the trigger, you could still do you could have it on burst and just tap that trigger and get one round, or stay on there a little longer and get 2 rounds, or stay on there a little longer and get 3 rounds. But if you just pull the trigger all the way back and hold it, you're only getting 3 rounds. But if you put it on fully auto, or what they call rock and roll, you can pull that trigger back and keep going until you empty the magazine. Now, some states, I think, have some limitations on magazines, but they've really done away with a lot of those. That was more like in Bill Clinton era. If you had over a 10-round magazine, you had to be police or military, but they've kind of taken that away now. So actually, even though this weapon can only one pull, 1 round, like we usually carry a 30-round clip, but I can put a 100-round clip in this thing. And it's going to have like 2 barrels coming out of the side of it. And instead of having to change magazines, I could keep rolling until that 100-round clip was was dry. Okay, and I don't have this one on my slide, but it's one of my favorite ones. Good old lever action. These things are sweet. You know, these are what you could see like in your old cowboy movies. John Wayne always carried one of these. But this one is actually your most popular one that you see a lot about and see around are probably 30-30s. This is a 44 Magnum. One reason, like in the Western use, that they were so popular is because they were designed that the cowboy or whoever in those days didn't have to carry different ammunition. They could use the same ammunition in their rifle that they used in their handgun. They were chambered for the same ammunition. Just if you shot it out of your rifle, you're going to be able to shoot it a little further and a little more accurate than if you were shooting it out of your handgun. Okay, now we talk about semi-automatic, full automatic. This is what's called a subgun. The ones that I used the most were called the Heckler & Koch MP5s. And one reason they call them subgun is not actually because they're smaller, which they usually are, but they usually shoot subsonic ammunition, which means the ammunition is going slower than the speed of sound. And a lot of places will like that because it didn't give your position away as much. Because see, if you were shooting a fully automatic weapon or a semi-automatic weapon, even with a suppressor on it, and you weren't using subsonic ammunition, when that round passed by you, you're going to hear a big crack when that round goes by. A lot of people were thinking they were hearing that weapon fire. No, they were hearing that bullet crack through the air. And that's what happens if you have a bullet that's flying faster than the speed of sound. But a lot of departments still use these. These are still really popular in Europe. Okay, now we talk about fully automatic machine guns. Now, the weapon I showed you before, like that AR type over there, the military calls them M16s or M4s. The basic difference in this weapon and that weapon is this weapon is designed to fire fully automatic. This weapon over here, or that type of weapon, is designed, basically, its main purpose is to fire one round at a time with the capability of firing fully automatic. Weapons like this, their sole purpose of life is you pull that trigger and you're going to roll till you quit pulling the trigger. That's the main difference in those two types of weapons. And these are usually a lot heavier and get a whole lot hotter. Okay, now we're going to talk about firearm safety a little bit. You know, that's one thing we talk about in this class is firearm safety. You know, a lot of people come to this class to get information about the laws and information on carrying your weapon. I'm real big on firearm safety. You know, that in my career as a police officer, I have seen a lot of tragedies. One of the worst ones I had, just to kind of bring it home, is we had a lady that had carrying her weapon, had her handgun permit. You know, she's just as legal as can be. Went up here to the Verizon to go in and pay her bill and look at another phone, and she left her gun in her vehicle, in her purse, in the front seat, with 4 young kids in the car. Okay, so while she was in there, they had prior knowledge that one of their kids had a real fascination with firearms, which can be a healthy thing if you teach them right and proper. But you don't let them play around with them unsupervised. Well, one of these young boys got a hold of that firearm that his mother left unsecured in the vehicle. He was playing with it. Gun went off, shot his little brother in the head and killed him. So that stuff happens. It's real, and when you go there, it is a sad day. Now, there are ways to, you know, accidents happen. You can forget that you had your gun with you. You know, like one thing, I've got gun locks out here. Folks, you're going to carry a gun, be a responsible gun owner. Be a responsible gun owner. These gentlemen over here, we are big advocates for, I'm a big advocate for the Second Amendment. I think everybody has a right to carry a weapon unless it's been deemed that you don't have that right. You've done something in your life that right has been taken away from you. They'll tell you just like I do, you know, they'd love for you to have your rights, carry your weapon, carry your concealed weapon, you know, carry it in your car, but do it safely and responsibly. You know, that's just like, if you live alone in your home, say if it's just you and your wife, nobody ever comes to visit. You don't have any grandkids coming over. You don't have anybody come over to clean your house. Nothing. You know, no problem with leaving your gun sitting on the nightstand. But if there's a possibility that you might have somebody coming over, might have some grandkids coming over or something, lock your weapons up, or at least put a gun lock on them. See, all your guns are going to come with a gun lock. That's federal mandate. Where did I put this one? Like this SIG, when you get this in the box, you're going to open up this box, and it's going to have 2 things. More than likely, it's going to have one of these orange things in the chamber. If you've got that in the chamber, that lets you know there's no round in it because that is blocking the chamber. And it's also going to come with a gun lock. And there's instructions going to tell you how to use this gun lock. They're real simple to use. Take that gun lock out, you unlock that gun lock, you run it through the barrel and out the ejection port, and you lock it back together. And I don't care what you do with this weapon, it is not going to fire. It can have a full magazine, and it will not fire, and there's definitely not going to be one in the chamber because you've run this cable through it. And there's going to be a lock on that, and you keep that key on your keychain or in a drawer somewhere. When you get this out, another thing that you need to do, every new gun that you get is going to come, it's going to come with a manual that's going to tell you everything that you need to know about that gun. So you need to sit down before you ever take that weapon out to shoot it or out to the range. Even if I buy a new gun, they change stuff on these things all the time. They change how you take them down. They change how you load the ammunition. They change different things about them, change the sights on them. You know, I've been doing this for a lot of years, but if I get a new gun that I'm not familiar with, that I've not handled before, yeah, I'm going to look at the manual on it and see if there's something different on it. So be very familiar with your gun if you buy your new gun. Like I said, if you live by yourself, nobody's going to come to your house. Put your gun wherever you want to. Because I've known plenty of police officers that say, when I come home at night, I take my gun belt and I put it over the bedpost. That's fine and dandy as long as you don't have any little kids running there and they're after you while you're asleep. Just be a responsible gun owner. Hey, this is just an example of different things you can do to lock your gun up, like cable like I showed you, and you can get the small gun case that can just fit one gun in it. You can get a lock box in it. They've got electronic boxes. They say, well, I can't get my gun out quick enough. You can have it on your nightstand. It'll read your handprint. You put your hand up there, it's going to unlock that drawer. It's going to pop right out for you. Those are real popular. If you have guns like this at home, you need to have a gun safe. Not only for, you know, accidents happen, you want to protect your investment. You know, as most of your gun safes will come with dehumidifiers and things that, you know, like when I was younger and first started getting guns, I always wanted, I'd go over to my buddy's house and they would have these gun cabinets with these etched cabinets with the deer and everything on it, and I always wanted one of those cabinets to set in my living room, but all it takes now is for the wrong person to come to your front door and see that back there. Like I said, if you have weapons like this at your house, you need to have them in a substantial gun safe. It's going to keep them safe from moisture, going to keep them safe from accidents, going to keep them safe from fire, it's going to keep them safe from theft, and you're going to know where they're at. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of gun safety here when we go out to the range or work. Yes, sir. Yes, I can.
What is this electronic holster? I've never heard of it.
The electronic holsters, we've actually got them for the police department. They've got some holsters out now that you can't even get it out of your holster unless it recognizes your thumbprint. That's the way things have come nowadays. That's just like your phone. You know how sometimes you can open your phone with your thumbprint. They've got holsters now that you can put your thumbprint on, and that's the only way you're going to get your gun out of there. That's the way most of those work. I've never had one of those, but I've seen them. Okay, let's talk about when you go to the range. Okay, I'm sure everybody's probably heard this a million times. Okay, always keep the gun pointed in a safe direction. Okay, I learned that the hard way one time. Now, sometimes I tell stories on myself. I was a young officer, good old H-70. It wasn't a Remington. It was an Ithaca, and I think this thing came over on the Mayflower. But one of the senior officers at that time tossed me that shotgun and said, "Hey, Mark, unload that thing. I need to put it up." So what did I think? Every time I've unloaded a pump shotgun is you just rack the shells out. You know, if you haven't shot the shell, if you rack the slide down, it's going to pop them out into your hand. So I racked 2 of them out just fine. When I racked the 3rd one out and I brought the slide back up, it went boom, right in the old City Hall building. And the reason it did that, the trigger was wore on it. And see, when you rack that thing's ready to go, and there's pressure on it, that thing's going to fire if you touch the trigger, or there's a mechanism back there. What's the trigger doing? It's holding back that firing pin. And anything built by man is subject to fail. You know, metal parts, rubbing against metal parts, don't last forever. That's why we say you always keep things pointed in a safe direction. Yeah, I had that thing pointed in a safe direction. I had my supervisor standing right here, and when it went boom, it went up into a block wall. It didn't hurt a thing but really my pride. And we deadlined that gun, sent it off, and had it looked at, and they said that trigger was slap wore out on that gun. And we got rid of that gun and got some new ones. But things like that can happen. That's one thing people say, well, why I got to worry about where I got it pointed? It says I don't have my finger on the trigger. That's just like weapons like a lot of those semi-automatic handguns. When you rack that thing and it's ready to go, even though you don't have your finger on the trigger, you're relying on the safeties of those guns and the internal safeties. Like a Glock, people say that Glocks don't have a safety, that this is safety on, safety off. Glocks actually have 3 safeties. They're one of your better built semi-automatic weapons for safety-wise. They have what they call a trigger safety, a drop safety, and a firing pin safety. But a lot of guns don't have those things. And like once again, when you charge that weapon, the only thing that's keeping that weapon from firing is that little pin or that little piece of metal that's holding that firing pin back. Because that firing pin has got a spring on it that's pushing that thing, and it's ready to go. All it's waiting for is that little bar to release it. So if that thing is wore or not in good use, that's why, especially new gun owners, I'd say buy yourself a new gun that you know is in good condition. You know, don't buy some old piece of crap. Buy yourself a new gun that you know is going to be in good working order, because accidents like that can happen. Okay, always keep your finger off the trigger till you're ready to shoot. Like I said, they say the best safety in the world is safety on, safety off. Safety on, safety off. Because if your weapon is functioning correctly, even if you drop it, it is not going to fire. Even these Smith revolvers, they have internal workings inside. They say, well, revolvers don't have a safety. Oh, yes, they do. A Smith revolver actually has 3 of them built inside their mechanism to keep them from firing if they're dropped. Okay. Always keep your gun unloaded till you're ready to use it. You know, some people, I know a lot of people, when they get home, they put their weapons up and they got them loaded. Said, when my children were little, I locked them up. When I got home, my weapon was locked up and it was behind a locked cabinet. I never had it setting out, but I know a lot of people don't like to unload their weapons when they come in for shooting. But the safest thing to do, if you're not taking that thing to the range, have it unloaded. But you know, and again, if you're using it for home safety, you might want to have the thing loaded, but you want to take some other safety precautions with it. You know, have it in a locked box, a locked drawer, or somewhere where some child can't get their hands on it. Know your target and what is beyond it. That is a big thing. You know, there's a lot of people, I've seen people go in their backyard, they got trees in their backyard and woods in their backyard, and they just hang a target on a tree. They don't think nothing about the people that are in the woods back there behind them, because you got avid hikers. Like, you think Fairfield Glade, how many places out here do you think you could hang a target on a tree, and there might be somebody hiking back there behind you? A lot of these rounds that you shoot, even a 22 round right on the box, it'll tell you that that round is capable of going a mile, mile and a half. Okay? So that thing can go a long way, because you need to be confident of your target and what's behind it. Okay? Know how to use your gun safely. We already went over that. Okay. Be sure on how to operate your gun safely. Read your manual. Okay. Use the correct ammunition. I've seen police officers do this. Like I was showing you those sub guns that we were showing up there when I was with the city, we had some of those sub guns. They were 9mm. So at my range, I had 9mm rounds, and our sidearms were 40 caliber, which the rounds don't look a whole lot of different. They do because I've handled them so much. The 40 caliber is heavier and a little wider than the 9mm. When people talk about caliber and millimeter, when you talk about a 9mm, that round is 9mm. When they talk about caliber, like a 40 caliber or a 45 caliber, like a 45 caliber is like 45th of an inch. That's the easiest way to remember it. A 50 caliber, that round's a ½ inch. Easy to remember it. Now, when you talk about like 9mm and 7mm and stuff like that, that's how wide the bullet actually is in metric system. But calibers are in inches. Okay. Where eye and ear protection. Oh, what I was going to tell you about the gun is we had one of our officers kept looking at his gun was firing. His rounds were coming out, but I was looking at his casings and they were all swolled up. I said something must be wrong with his gun because his casings were all blowed out. He had took his 40 caliber magazines and loaded them with 9mm rounds and was shooting them through a 40 caliber weapon. And it was cycling and firing. I don't know how in the world it was, but it was blowing the heck out of his casings, and it could have blew up at any time in his gun. So that was a good teaching point for us. Never use alcohol or drugs of any kind, prescription or whatever, when you are shooting, okay? You don't want to be on antihistamines or anything like that when you're out there. You want to make sure you are in a clear mind and clear head when you are out firing your weapon. Okay, store your guns so they're not accessible to unauthorized persons. We talked about that in length. Okay, be aware certain types of guns require additional safety precautions. You know, like we're talking about a pistol or a rifle, that if I'm shooting at that back wall over there, I know when I shoot that round, depending on how well I'm shooting that day, I'm probably going to shoot in an area no bigger than that. But if I'm shooting at that back wall with a shotgun, I'm liable to cover that entire wall. So you're going to have to use different safety precautions depending on what type of weapon that you're using. And of course, when we're talking about you're using handguns versus you're at the range with a high-powered rifle, you got to pay more attention to what kind of backstop that you've got, what kind of targets you're shooting at, and what is behind you. You know, if you are shooting a high-powered rifle, you got to worry about what is a lot further behind you than if you're shooting a .22. Regular cleaning is important. About the most time we have jams on the range or malfunctions on the range, it's because of two things. Either their weapon is dry, they've not oiled it well, or it is just dirty. Usually it's because it's dirty. Okay, now we're going to start talking about handgun permits. A lot of this, if you were in my class last year, is going to be some of the same information. But one of the things that I usually try to cover is new laws that come out on firearms or handgun permits and things like that. The only real change we have this year, and you'll notice in the paperwork that I've got there out for you, even in the laws and stuff that I just printed out yesterday and today from the state's website, some of the stuff is not actually correct because we had a change in May. Who can tell me what law changed in May? Has to do with who can carry a firearm. They lowered the age from 21 to 18. That was a big change. Don't affect a whole lot of us out here in Fairfield. But that was, if I gave you just the same paperwork this year that I gave you last year, that would be about the only difference in it. Now, when they came up with the what some people call constitutional carry, a lot of people think that Tennessee is a constitutional carry state. It is in a way, but it's not. A true constitutional carry means that you can put your old musket on your shoulder and walk down to the pub and have you a pint. We can't do that because, you know, the U.S. Constitution says that we have a right to keep and bear arms. And one of the reasons it says that we developed that so we can maintain a well-maintained militia. But they don't really bring the militia into it much anymore. That says that you have a right to keep and bear arms, which I believe everybody does. The Tennessee Constitution says the exact same thing, but it also says that Tennessee has a right to regulate it, okay, for lawful purposes. And they have come pretty close to constitutional carry. Like I said, a constitutional carry is anybody could walk down the road with just about any type of weapon that they want to. Our handgun carry permits and our permitless carry is for handguns only. Like a lot of people thought, well, when they've opened this up, it's going to be the Wild West. People are going to start walking into a Walmart carrying their ARs. I said, no, you can't carry that weapon. You can't carry your shotgun and walk down Main Street. It's only for handguns and handguns alone. And when they changed that, they changed the handgun carry permits a little bit. The two main categories that you've got right now is called your enhanced carry permit and your concealed carry permit. People say, well, what are the differences in that? Really, the big difference is the concealed carry is the lowest level that you got. You don't have to go to the range and you don't have to qualify with an instructor. You can do that online. You can do that online. The enhanced carry permit, you have to like see one of these fine gentlemen over here and go spend 8 hours in a classroom and in a range, and they're going to make sure that you know what you're doing. And a lot of people say, well, why should I go get a handgun carry permit? Because I don't really need one. I said, well, especially new gun owners. If you've been carrying a gun all your life, you know, that you're real familiar with guns, maybe you don't need one so much. But if you want a gun for home protection and you're not that familiar with guns, the best way to get more familiar with your gun and be confident on what you're doing is to take their course. They're going to tell you everything you want to know about your gun. They're going to teach you how to use that gun safely. They're going to talk to you about storing it safely. They're going to talk to you about carrying it safely. They're going to talk to you about your ammunition. They're going to talk to you about targets. They're going to take you to the range and make sure that you know how to shoot that weapon. One thing that has changed when they first came out with handgun carry permits is used to you could go to the range for carry permits anymore. You could go to the range with a 22 and carry a 44 Magnum. But also people say, well, why do I need to get a handgun carry permit at all? A lot of people around here do a lot of traveling. And there's this thing called reciprocity. So that's a strange word. Reciprocity means that all these other states that have allow carry permits, they pretty well will do what your state does. And some of them will let you open carry, just like Tennessee does. And some of them will only let you carry in their state if you have a permit or an enhanced permit. Now, one of those papers that I sent you back there that had a picture of the U.S. on it and had different colored things on it, it was supposed to print out a color code there too. That's one of the best sites that you can go to. That is concealedcarry.com. And people wonder why Tennessee is in gray. Well, that's because when you click on that state, when you clicked on Tennessee, everything that's behind that gives you the Tennessee law. If you clicked on Idaho on that website, it would give you all the law for Idaho. When you look at that, all the states that are in blue, that means that they say if you got a permit or you're good in Tennessee, you're good in our state. If you got one that is in yellow, it says there may not be things that your state's doing. You need to check with us. Same thing with green. If it's green, you should be good to go. And if it's red, don't even ask them, because they don't think that you should have a Red Ryder BB gun. Yep. Okay, we talked about the enhanced carry, concealed carry. Like I said, that's the two main different levels of carry permits. They have a lifetime carry, means you pay more money. You can get that permit one time and you're good for life on that. Retired law enforcement, that's a different permit for that. And there's a temporary permit. That has to do with things like women that are in domestic assault situations and stuff, they can go without doing anything else but presenting that order of protection stuff. They can get issued a 21-day temporary permit, but it's only good for that 21 days. Gives them time to get their stuff together and go get a regular permit. Okay, unlawful carry. In Tennessee, that paperwork back there, it is unlawful for a citizen of Tennessee or somebody visiting Tennessee to carry a weapon for the purpose of going armed. Say, how can that be? It is unlawful for a person in the state of Tennessee to carry a weapon for the purpose of going armed. That's the law. But if you read that statute, it has exceptions. Now, you'll read the exceptions there now. You're over 18, you're over 21. One of the big things is DUIs. If you've had 2 DUIs in the last 10 years, you can't carry a weapon. If you've had a DUI in the last 5 years, you can't carry a weapon. If you've had a domestic assault, you can't carry a weapon. If you're a convicted felon, you can't carry a weapon. So when they make these laws for unlawful carry, they blanket it. And then they make an exception, say, if you meet this criteria, this criteria, and this criteria, you can carry it. That's like when the state of Tennessee said, yeah, we're going to open carry. That doesn't mean that everybody on the street can open carry. That only means law-abiding citizens who haven't had a domestic, haven't had a DUI in the last 5 years or 2 in the last 10 years, they're not a convicted felon, can carry that weapon. And you own that, you own that gun, and you're somewhere where you can be legally. Okay, now this is some of what it just said. Now this is one of the things where I was talking about a person over the age of 21, a person that is 18. This is where they haven't updated their site yet. Used to, before May, you could only carry a gun if you were 18, if you were basically a member of the armed forces or you were dishonorably discharged from the armed forces. And we talk about people who can't carry a gun. Even if you're an law-abiding citizen, if you went down to a Pizza Hut and you had a beer with your pizza, you can't go carry your gun into Walmart. You can't have drunk anything and carry a weapon. You can't be drinking alcohol and carry your weapon. Okay, places prohibited. This paperwork was back there too. Of course, judicial buildings, federal buildings, public schools, school buses, property owner operated by schools, private schools were posted under the influence of drug or alcohols, consuming alcohol, wherever it's served. Okay, public recreational buildings or civic centers. Okay, the following if posted. One thing about civic centers and parks, that's another reason for wanting your carry permit. And thing about out here, it is illegal for you to carry your weapon on a hiking trail or in a park if you don't have a carry permit. If you have a carry permit, you're good to go. But you can't just go open carry on any of these trails out here. You have to see these fine gentlemen and get yourself a permit if you want to carry and go out on nature trails or go to a park. Also, one thing about parks, if you go to a park and there are school children having any kind of event, you can't be anywhere around that, even if you got your permit. Okay. Juvenile facilities, okay. Government buildings. Most of your government buildings will be posted. Okay. Carries allowed. Any location unless otherwise posted or prohibited by law. You always like that, unless prohibited by law. That infers that you know all the laws. Okay. Okay, armed party alone is no longer a reason for making a Terry stop. That's a probable cause stop that we use as police officers. Usually, used to, we get calls if somebody was walking down the street or somewhere, we got a call, hey, somebody's up here at Stonehenge and they got a gun on their hip. So, usually that would be a reason for us to check somebody and see why they've got a gun on their hip. You know, because they would either have to be have a permit or they were a law enforcement officer or something along those lines. Say, even if somebody, they call in and say, I've got to have some other reason to approach that person, that I've got to have some other suspicions, either something they're done or some other knowledge I have about that person before I can approach them about their firearm. Okay, and armed parties are under no obligation to identify themselves unless I am investigating them for some other crime or something. You know, if they're just sitting there, they have that. But also, if you do have a permit, it's part of your permit. If a law enforcement officer asks you after you have a permit, you're supposed to show them your permit. But if you're just open carry, the law says that you don't have to tell a police officer anything. But most good citizens will, you know, that say, yeah, I'm just open carry. I'm legally allowed to carry my gun like this. Say, no, I don't have a permit, but I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm just sitting here and minding my own business, and they'll go on about their way. Yes, sir.
Let's say I go to Stonecatch, they serve liquor there, but I don't drink.
If you don't drink, you're all right.
So it would be different if we went to a bar that their only business is a bar.
Most of your bars are going to have a sign. Because most people don't go to a full-fledged bar unless they're going there to have a beer, or they're just going to meet some buddies there. But best thing, I would not carry my weapon into a bar. If you're going in there just to have some water and pretzels, are you within the law? Yeah, you're within the law. Is it going to cause you some problems? Yes, it's going to cause you some problems. That's just like we have an open carry. Yes, we have open carry, and it's still going to cause you some problems. It's still going to make some people nervous. If you do a concealed carry, you know, if you got a jacket on, you know, you don't need to be walking into Walmart. So, yeah, there's my gun. What are you going to do about it? You got a jacket, you got it covered. Nobody's going to say a word to you. You know, the thing about it is, don't put yourself in those situations, and don't count on every police officer that you run into to know the law. You know, because there's a whole lot of it. And maybe they were told it when they were in the academy, maybe they had meetings about it, but you know, as a concealed permit carrier or somebody that is going to be carrying the law, make sure you know the law. So you can say, officer, you know, according to law, I'm not violating any laws. You know, I'll show you my ID, but yes, I have a firearm, but I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm just, you know, using my right to carry my gun. Especially if you're out of town or out of state. You know, as you go to some of these jurisdictions, you know, some of these backwood places, you know, they change officers every couple of months, and you might have police officers out there that Post says that we got to send them to the academy within 6 months. So you might have a lot of police officers out there that are out there doing this job that have not been to a police academy and don't understand the laws well. So you need to understand your rights. You need to understand what the laws are. You need to, if you're going to carry a weapon, you need to understand what the laws are. And that's just like, even if you run into some police officer that doesn't know his butt from a hole in the ground, and he wants to arrest you, let him arrest you. That's a fight for another day. You know, you go home at night, you know, you can call and talk to his chief the next day, but, you know, if he decides that you're carrying illegally and he thinks that he needs to arrest you, don't resist arrest. Let him arrest you. Do whatever you got to do and take care of it the next day. That's my best advice to you on that. Would you agree, gentlemen? Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's just like in Tennessee, we'll get into that a little bit. You know, the thing about carrying it in your car, that is kind of an extension of the castle law. We'll talk about that a little bit. All right. Okay, places you may carry permit only. Okay. Yes, somebody had a question? A private business can post their business, no firearms, and you cannot legally carry a firearm in that business. They have every right to do that. But if they don't have a sign and you come in with your gun, they don't need to get all bent about it, you know, that you say, well, I didn't see a sign, but I will leave. But if it is posted outside the door, it is illegal for you to carry that weapon inside that business. Yes, sir.
As I understand it, even if they have a sign, you can't carry a firearm, but they have to protect you.
What's that now, sir?
They have to store, the store has to protect you. Right?
Yes, sir.
Could you explain that?
Give me that again, sir.
Even though they have a posted sign that says you can't carry a firearm, then they have to protect you.
They have to protect you?
Yes.
That would get into the civil end of it, but I would say they could have some liability on that. He's saying that if they don't allow you in and there's some kind of an incident or something in the store and they didn't allow you to carry your firearm in, the store could have some liability for not letting you to bring your gun in to protect yourself. Like I said, you can get sued for anything. If I get a bank alarm call out here today and I go out there and a guy comes out the door and he's firing rounds at me and I fire back at him and I shoot him and to kill him, I'm probably going to get sued by his family. That's just the nature of the beast.
The sign also has to have the proper wording.
Yes. Yeah, there's a statute that says what it has to say.
First section, blah, blah, blah. If that sign doesn't have the proper wording, it's really not a valid sign.
And what you will see, you are absolutely right, it becomes a civil issue. The Constitution is written to show what individuals' rights are and what the government can and cannot do. It doesn't say anything about what a private entity, store can and cannot do. That's where the state law comes in saying, yes, a business owner can mark his private property as do not enter carrying a gun. It doesn't mean that he has to provide protection for you. It means that I'm not going in there. And he's lost my business.
Okay, like we got up here, parks, you can carry in a park unless it's being used by a school for an athletic event or school activity. Okay, full-time registered employees of a university or higher education. It's one thing Tennessee passed where they had that big fight up there in Nashville and they kept kicking that guy from Memphis. He kept raising King, they kept getting him out of there. That was basically over this because they didn't want school teachers or college professors to be able to carry a gun. Now, for them to carry a weapon on campus, they're going to have a very hard time doing it because not only do they have to have a permit, they have to have an extra safety course, which I think, don't you all do that extra safety course for schools that they have to have? Because I was thinking on the state website it showed that you did. But also on this one where they can carry it in schools, not only do they have to get the extra training and the extra certification, one of the biggest hurdles that they got to get over, the chief of police has to sign off on it. The sheriff has to sign off on it. The school administration has to sign off on it. To get all those people to agree to anything is about impossible. Okay. Carry on campgrounds. I said nature trails and greenways. I said these are things that you need to have your permit to do. See, if you don't have a permit, you can't do these things. Okay. Now this is one of my favorite little sheets here. Got that back there. Okay, let you know if you're carrying legally or not. Carrying on a permit-only location says, do you have your permit on you? Said you might have a permit, but you better have it on you. If you don't, you're in violation. If you have it on you, it's yes. You've got it on you, can you present it? Yes, you're verified. If you can't present it, no, it's a violation. That's very simple. Even if you're where you're supposed to be and you have a permit, you got to be able to produce it. Just like you're driving your car and you get pulled over and your driver's license is sitting on the kitchen table. Yeah, we can run and check it, but the law says that if you're operating that vehicle, you got to have that license on you. Same thing with your handgun carry permit. Okay. Unlawful sales or loans or gifts of firearms. In Tennessee, a lot of people, especially when they move here, they say, well, I'm moving here. Do I have to register my guns in Tennessee? Tennessee does not register guns. And they think about the federal side of it. They said, do the feds know what guns I have? The only way the feds know what guns that you have is if you've bought them all new and you went through the tick system and you got on that. Because the federal system, I don't know that I really believe them on this. They say that they can tie a gun to a person, but not a person to a gun. I don't know that I really believe that, but they say that they could take a gun and see if I purchased it, but they can't check their system and see if I have purchased it. I don't know that I really buy that, but that's what they say. Okay, gifts of firearms. Law reads kind of weird there. That's just like if you have a grandchildren, you can't, or same thing about people that are allowed to have guns. Say they're over 18, over 21, they haven't had a DUI, no domestic, not a convicted felon. If you give somebody a gun or you sell somebody a gun, it's your responsibility to know that they're not in any of those categories. Sometimes that's awful hard to do, so you better have a pretty good idea who you're selling a gun to. Okay? Juveniles, it says that you can't give a gun to a juvenile unless you are a guardian or family member, you're giving it to them for hunting or sport purposes, or it just says like a juvenile can't possess or transport a gun unless they're going to a hunt, going to a lawful activity like going out to the Sportsman Club to shoot. Okay, they can do that. Okay, ghost guns. Don't hear as much about those now. They got a lot more press here a few years ago. I think they kind of died down a little bit. A ghost gun is basically that a gun that these companies were making. Most of them were coming out of Texas. They were making these guns to where all you had to do was drill a couple of extra little holes and put a few extra pieces in, and they could sell you this gun as a kit, as an unfinished firearm, and they don't have to put a serial number on it. It doesn't have to be registered. And that kit that they would send you would have the jigs and the drills and everything you needed to finish that firearm. And one thing about the law that's funny about that is that a lot of people don't know. If you can own a gun like that, but it is also illegal for you to sell a unserialized weapon. You can make any type of firearm that you want, unless it's you can't build a cannon and go out there and fire. But you can get a kit and build a musket loader and stuff like that. Or if you're good at your shop, you can build your own firearm. But you can't produce them for sale unless you're a licensed dealer. And then you have to have serial numbers on it. You could build guns all day long for your own use and take them out to the range without serial numbers on it. But there has to be a weapon that you've produced and you've built. Ghost guns was one of those things that, the big thing on that, people were getting in trouble, not getting them in and say, well, I've got this gun now, what do I do with it now? Because you can't really give away or sell it to anybody because you can't resell guns that don't have serial numbers on them. That's where they were getting you on it. And they pretty well calmed those down. We're not seeing much of those anymore. Restrictions on ammunition. Not a whole lot of restrictions on ammunition. Used to, when I was younger, if you went and bought any ammunition, it was about like buying a gun. They had to write down who you were, what type of ammunition you got, and how much you got. They've done away with that. The only restrictions on ammunition now is if you are buying armor-piercing ammunition, or it is completely illegal to produce ammunition that is, his 50th anniversary of Jaws. What was Roy Scheider doing to his rounds is putting nitroglycerin on them and then putting wax on the top because he thought he could blow the shark up. It's illegal to make rounds that hit a target and go boom. Now you can get stuff that you can put on your target when you hit it and it goes boom. It's perfectly legal. They sell it at the Walmart. Okay? You can't put anything on your round that by itself, when it hits, it's going to go boom. Jacketed hollow point bullets are fine. You just can't put anything in them that's going to go boom. You can't put any C4 or anything like that in the end of them.
But you're allowed to carry them.
Oh, hollow point bullets are absolutely legal. And your armor-piercing rounds are legal. Now, some states they may be illegal. In Tennessee, they're legal. That just there's restrictions on the purchasing of them. Now, a lot of them look at them like if you're familiar with like AR rounds. If you'll see them that have a green tip, that means that's probably got a steel core, what makes it an armor-piercing round.
And they're legal.
They're legal, yeah. Now, most ranges, don't you have signs that you can't use them on your range?
The reason we don't allow armor-piercing steel tip on ours is because, I don't know if we don't want people shooting out there. We don't shoot our steel targets.
Yeah, it's going to tear your range up. Okay, here's when we get into self-defense. And I think there's about a 3 or 4 pager back there on that. Self-defense, one of the biggest things, a question I always get, if somebody comes into my house in the middle of the night and I'm in fear, can I shoot them? Like, yes and no. Okay. Now, you have to be able to articulate to 12 people that don't know you over here that you were in fear of your life or in fear of somebody else's life, and or they got it in there, grievous sexual assault. The definition of that is rape. That one of those things happen. That's just like the basic thing. Tennessee is not what you call a stand your ground state, but we're not. There are some states that say if somebody's coming to your house that you have a duty to retreat. Tennessee, you have no duty to retreat. Okay? And we have what's called, you have the castle doctrine. It means your home is your castle. You can protect your castle. That's why it first came out before they had the open carry that you could carry in your car or you could carry in your boat. You couldn't take it out of your car into the parking lot. The thing about that was to protect you from like carjackers and stuff like that. But that's really gone. The same laws are still there on that. It's just a lot more open now with the open carry. Somebody comes into your house 2 in the morning, you hear some ruckus in your living room, and you're back down the hallway, and you see somebody carrying out your little portable safe on this shoulder and got a TV on this shoulder, and they're headed toward the front door. You're here, they're headed toward that front door. Can you shoot them? They're in your house. They broke into your house. It's 2 in the morning. Can you shoot them? No, you cannot, because they are making an attempt to leave. If they are trying to flee, you cannot shoot them. You know, it's just like there was a case, I guess it's been like 10 years ago. Somebody came outside and somebody was still in their car. I think it was over in Morgan County. And as they were going down the driveway, he unloaded buckshot on them, killed one of them in the car. He is in a world of hurt. they are attempting to flee your fear of imminent death or serious bodily injury is gone. You can't substantiate it. Now, again, you're back here in the hallway. They're over here getting this stuff. They're going up this way, but they're going up this way, and you hear, "Grandpa," your little grandkids over there by the door. My opinion is, I'm not an attorney, but my opinion is it's a totally different situation. There you're protecting a third party, even though there's no danger to you. It looks like they may be leaving, but they're headed right for that child. Okay. Now you may have a duty to give them a command. Tell them, "Oh, stop, drop, and roll." And also there's a thing, if you give them commands to stop and they obey what you're doing, what you're telling them, you're going to have a hard time justifying them. If your grandchild is over there, you pull up that gun, you say, "Stop, or I'm going to blow you away." And they go, "Oh man, I didn't see no kid. I'm just trying to leave. How can I get out of here?" You say, "There's a door back there." They keep going toward that kid. Of course, me, I'm going to go over there. I'm going to get between the kid and them. But as long as you've stopped them, they've stopped progressing on that child, it's a different situation again. You got to look, the situation changes, your rights to fire on somebody changes. Like if you fire your weapon on somebody, you absolutely got to be able to establish that you were in fear of your life. Not only, you can't just say, "Well, I was in fear of my life." You got to articulate that. You got to be able to explain that. You got to be able to write that in a statement and put that in words and articulate that. Because just saying, well, just telling you were in fear of your life, well, what does that mean to you? That may mean something different to somebody else. That means if I didn't stop what happens, say more likely than not, either I was going to get killed or seriously injured, or somebody else was going to get killed or seriously injured. Okay? That's the basics of your self-defense. Now, if you're not in your house, you're in the Walmart parking lot. You walk up, somebody's breaking into your car. Okay? Now, you've got a gun on your hip. Can you hold them at gunpoint till the police get there? No, you cannot. You can only draw that gun and point it on somebody if you're same thing as this self-defense. You got to articulate that you're in serious fear of bodily injury. Now, if you're inside of that Walmart and you got some maniac comes in there with a butcher knife slashing everybody, and you're over here and you're armed, and he's not after you, but he's coming after you, he's bought and paid for. You can articulate that. It doesn't have to be you, doesn't have to be a family member. As you think about when you get outside somewhere, the castle doctrine, you're going to have a little more leeway inside your own home, but the actual same laws apply. If you pull out your weapon and you go to put that on somebody, or you fire your weapon on somebody, whether in the house or out on the street, you need the same justification. It may be easier to justify it in your house than it is on the street, but the same laws apply, the same justification applies, the same standard. Any questions on that? Yes, sir.
What if you do move, like you mentioned, move between whoever and your grandchild, the example you gave? What if you make the move to get between the front door and the perpetrator? Is that showing that you planned this and you're going to end up in trouble anyway while they're trying to still get out? They're still trying to escape the front door, but you're in the
Well, say, if I'm moving toward that front, if they're still moving, I probably wouldn't have time to get in between them. It would depend on the layout of the house and the distance that they had. But what I'm saying is, like, I'm telling them to stop, and they have stopped. Then I go over and I position myself between the child and them. But say, if they're from here to that back wall and the child is over there, unless they immediately stop, how am I going to get in between them and the child? You got to articulate the situation. Like I said, inside your home, you can articulate a lot better than going down an aisle at Walmart. You know, you say, I seen this guy, he had a knife, he was in Walmart, he's going down the aisle at Walmart, or he was going down the hallway of your house. Which one is easier to articulate? Does that answer your question at all? Yes, sir.
Okay, what if you're in a Walmart parking lot, somebody's breaking in your car, and you come up behind them, say, hey, I'm armed. Quit breaking into my car, and they say, screw you, and keep doing it.
You call 911. You back off. The way the law reads, this weapon, that carry permit is not to defend property. What did I say about the self-defense? Severe bodily injury or death, not property. In some states, Texas, you can defend property. You can defend your neighbor's property in Texas, but we're not in Texas. Okay? Just because you got a gun on your hip, you can say, hey, I'm armed, get away from my car. Saying, hey, I'm armed is different than pulling your weapon. That answer that for you? Okay. Where else? Do with my clicker. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Somewhere I saw that unlawful to go with the intent to go armed.
What's that?
I saw somewhere it said, go somewhere with the intent to go armed.
That's where I told you. That's what I told you. It is illegal to carry a weapon with the intent to go armed. If I strap this gun on my hip and I'm not going to the range, I'm going to the park. I'm carrying this weapon with the intent to go armed. That's where it says it's illegal, but if you look at the next page, it's highlighted, it gives you those exceptions. That's where I talked about the exceptions. I'm over 21. I'm not a convicted felon. I haven't had a DUI in 10 years. I've not had a domestic violence. You know, I can legally carry and possess this weapon. And I'm going to a place where I'm allowed to go. One other thing I forgot to cover about people that are going to places they're allowed to go. Transporting weapons from state to state. There is a federal law that says you are allowed to transport your weapons from state to state. And some states have real weird rules about that. But if you are transporting a weapon from state to state, it also says if you have a weapon that you are legally able to possess in this state, wherever you're going, you have to be able to legally possess it in that state to be legal to transport it. Also, the best way to transport that, most of that is, if you are transporting a weapon, it needs to be in a locked box separate from the ammunition. That doesn't mean, well, I'm transporting this gun, so I've got it on my hip. Now, if you know the laws in these states, you've looked at and you've checked and you see that you're good all the way through your route, but there is a federal law that covers you for transporting your weapons. That's just like, say, you're here, you're going to go elk hunting in Wyoming, and before you go, all your guns are locked down in the trunk, and the ammunition is locked down in a separate place, and you're going to Wyoming, and you get stopped in Arkansas. They say, any weapons in this car? Yes, sir, there is. We're going to Wyoming elk hunting. Our weapons are locked down. The ammunition is not readily accessible. You should be good to go. Once again, don't rely on everybody to know what the law is. But as long as you know what the law is, and if you get hung up somewhere, if you know what the law is and you know you're right, come back and fight it the next day. If you know what you're doing is right and the police officer or whoever you're talking to is just not having it, do whatever they say and take care of it the next day, because the law will eventually be on your side. Okay. Any other questions?
And chance and concealed carry permit and a chance. What was the difference again?
Concealed carry permit, you don't have to go to a range, talk to people. You can do all that online. It's not much different than the open carry. Now, it's a big difference in some of these states want you to have that enhanced carry for them to honor your carry permit. Now, the enhanced carry permit, you can do more with it than you can. And also, it's showing that you have training and experience on that weapon. So if I was a new gun owner and I was thinking about or I was thinking about carrying my gun, I would get the enhanced carry permit just because I know it's going to teach me how to safely carry my gun. I'm going to go to a range, I'm going to know that I can shoot that gun well, and they're going to answer any questions that I might have about it. I talk to experts in the field. I'm not just talk to my next door neighbor Bubba. Say, yeah, you can carry that gun. Here, I got 3 of them. You want to use one? You know, but you've got one that you know works well, that you've been to the range with. You've got good ammunition for it. You know exactly what it does. You know what it's going to feel like when you shoot it.
That permit, though, is good for that gun, or is it?
It's good for they're good for any gun now. They used to be only good for that gun. See, that's changed like 3 times. When they first came out, you could go with the 22 and could carry a 44, and then they changed if you wanted to carry a 44, you had to qualify with that 44. Now they're back to if you qualify, you can carry anything. Like a motorcycle license. You know, you can go to the DMV and get a little Honda 250 and get your license and go buy you a Gold Wing. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
I only took the 10-year one because of my age. Otherwise, I would have done the lifetime, which was $300. So I did the 10-year for $100. What happens after 10 years? Do I just go and
You get renewed, just like your driver's license.
go through the whole thing?
I believe you just get it renewed.
So bad it's weird. Just renew it, but permit's good for 8 years.
Is it 8 or 10?
It's 8. Yeah.
It is 8 years to renew it. But if you don't renew it, you have 8 years to renew it.
So you just go to the motor vehicle and just renew it?
You do it all the time.
Oh, okay. Because at my age, I figured I'd only do, well,
You live to be 105. Anything else, folks? Yes, ma'am.
Can you just distinguish a little bit on that Walmart scenario? So say you weren't fearful that they would break, but you didn't witness them trying to break into your car. But this happened to us at the Walmart in Crossville. We were loading our groceries, and a guy came up behind me, and I don't know what his intention was at that time, but he scared me. My husband came around and told him to get, out of here. The guy resisted a couple times.
Come on, Alice.
You go back again. If she can articulate that she was in fear of great bodily injury, yeah, you could if you had your weapon in, but you got to be able to articulate that. That's a pretty high standard, and every situation is different. But you got to be able to articulate that.
But he saw me, he slowed down, they kept coming.
Yeah.
Is articulating like the difference between saying you're going to steal your purse and fear?
Articulating basically means I can put it in writing why I was afraid. That's what articulating means. Yeah, like I said, this is not to protect property, not to protect property. Yeah.
If your dog was in the car and you feared that someone was breaking in when you came out and that your dog was going to get either let out of the vehicle or get taken with that vehicle, like to us, that would be,
The law will look at it as property. Yes, ma'am. Am I right? Anything else, folks? Well, I've enjoyed having you today, and I thank you for coming out. Like I said, we're going to be here for a while. If you want to look at any of my firearms over here, you want to talk to these gentlemen, or I have more handouts in the back, and I believe Neighborhood Watch has something for you. Yeah, anything on that table up there is fair game. Stuff on this table is not.